We don't have an engineering council like Council of Architects. We don't give engineers a license to practice, so they are not
Hmm.
scared of losing that license if a building falls. We don't hold our engineers accountable. Thanks to our Bollywood, where a civil engineer is always shown as the guy who steals cement, our image has really gone down the drain. And then
Hmm.
thanks to clients who hire only an architect and then
Hmm.
give him the engineering designs also, the money has also become a trickle. If you are charging 2%, I should be charging 2% on the structural cost. But that is not happening. You charge
Hmm.
2% and you give 2 rupees square foot or 3 rupees square foot to an engineer, which is just peanuts.
How much salary can a fresher expect?
25 to 30,000 per month if you've done your M.Tech in structures or in any relevant discipline.
Today we have Mrs. Sangita Wij with us. Sangeeta is a civil engineer with an extensive experience of more than 40 years in designing building structures. Apart from designing structures for large infrastructure projects, her expertise lies in designing earthquake resistant structures. She has a portfolio of more than 1200 projects. She founded her company ST Engineering Consultants back in 1996 when women in science and business was a rare phenomenon. She has also served as technical director at ACOM. She currently holds the position of managing partner at STEC. Both Sangeeta and us share a common vision of breaking the intra industry silos in AEC. So let's get started.
How are you doing?
I'm very fine. Thank you. I'm happy to be here and thank you for giving me this opportunity to chat with you.
The intent of this episode is to answer common questions around career building in civil engineering. And we have derived the questions which are relevant to students of engineering. We'll also touch upon the common issues that professionals face in the industry. But before we jump into the questions, I'd like you to reflect back on your experience a little bit. You set up STEC in 1996 when education, especially science, was not a popular choice for women. How has your journey been since then?
I think I would like to take you a little before that when I came out of college in 1982. Delhi College of Engineering had offered me a position as an assistant professor. They said, you complete your M.Tech side by side and start teaching because we don't have enough girls. But I really wanted to be a practicing structural engineer, so I had to refuse that. I worked in Rail India Technical and Economic Services Rights, which is a public sector company. And here is where all my learning, most of my learning in design came from. So that was a period when computers also came in. I think first personal computer was bought in rights in my division on my insistence. Then started the journey where I found earthquake resistant was the need of our industry, and a lot of our colleagues were keen to pursue it, and then we started working on it. And I left when I thought I could do a little more. So I started off in 96 on my own. Probably, I mean, I'm not sure, but I may have been the first woman structural engineer to start her own practice in India. But it was
Yeah.
a very interesting thing on the whole. And I think it's come out rather well. I'm happy.
So, how has the mindset changed over these years in the community?
You see, any profession in general, which was other than doctor, CA, or teacher, was considered a taboo for girls. When I was
Hmm.
doing my engineering, a lot of resistance within family and friends came up. But my parents didn't discourage me at all. They said, you go ahead and do whatever you want to do, and it became a means of uplifting us from the lower middle class background we were in. And when I started on my own, I found that people were quite receptive. to the idea of working with us. Only thing is that I had to establish my credibility in the market. But in general, the journey has been quite good. It's been bit of roller coaster, but I think it happens in all professions where you're interacting with a lot of new clients and you're working on new projects. You don't know those people, how credible or how good paymasters will they turn out to be. So I
Right.
think it's okay. This must be happening in other professions as well.
So in architecture, we see a lot of women. In landscape design, in interior design, we see a lot of women. But in engineering, hardcore engineering, we see a little less of women even today.
Well, I think it is a personal choice and probably lack of awareness as to what exactly is a structural engineer doing in a design office. People don't get to know that. In
Hmm.
general, you must know, that there is very little awareness about
Hmm.
what we do in real life.
Hmm.
Hardly, when the project begins at site, our work is mostly over in the design office. So we do end up making couple of visits to the site sometimes when the client wants us to meet the
Hmm.
contractor or give any queries, resolution or anything. But otherwise, our work is primarily in a design office. So many girls opting for engineering do not realize that civil engineering is a good choice, fairly good choice, and it gives you a lot of options. You need not do only structural engineering of buildings. You can be a bridge design engineer. You can end up designing ports and harbors. You can design airports. You can design so many new fields are coming up, opening up as
Right.
opens. And I do not wish to limit my discussion only to women because I
Hmm.
think profession needs fresh blood, good engineers
Right.
who are good
Definitely.
in basics, who have
Huh.
good sound basics.
Hmm.
So they can do well at site because you need good engineers who know their basics, who know all the operating parameters for good concrete, for good steel detailing, good construction at site. And as they grow, the salary or the remuneration grows pretty well. And at the end of, let's say, 10 years, good
Hmm.
site as well as a good structural design engineer or a civil engineer working in, let's say, plumbing or drainage schemes or large water treatment plants, sewage treatment plants, or even designing plumbing and drainage for townships. These are all excellent career options. They lead you to a good pay package at the end of 5-year period. I see the demand has far outgrown supply. So these salaries are much higher. The remuneration is much higher. It's a very attractive career for any girl or boy who's willing to become an engineer.
Hmm.
You should be honest to yourself while you're studying. Get
Hmm.
a grasp of the basics अच्छे होने चाहिए. When you're designing, you should not be just a computer operator or a STAD operator or a ETABS operator. Your basic, as you grow, as you develop engineering sense, which I think feel of the whole design process, you develop that with time, but having good basics is really essential. So when we are in college, I would encourage our young friends to be sincere and learn the basics well, and then go in for a M.Tech structures if they want to be structural design engineers. Look at being familiar with the Bureau of Indian Standard Codes. Unfortunately, I think our colleges are still not teaching them about Bureau of Indian Standard Codes, the relevant codes which matter for design. So those probably at M.Tech level they can learn better and do some real projects during internship. I don't see any limit to opportunities. There are good companies in public domain. I see Engineers India Limited as a flagship design company, but there are many others who are doing good structural designs as well, like Indian Oil, for example. You may not know, but the quality of structural design they carry out within their organization, they have a large setup. And similarly, Beacon, Rights, DMRC, NTPC, ONGC, there's a whole lot of companies in public sector domain and government like CPWD. They've also gone into EPC mode and they've started transferring everything to a contractor, to hire an architect and a design team. But I think there are a lot of good opportunities for people who
Right.
want to do a government career. But people who are not looking for a government career, private sector is quite wide open, right from Atkins and ACOM and WSP and L&T. Look at L&T. L&T has its own huge design department where they
Yeah.
can put out, even more, most complex of designs themselves than Tata projects. It
Yeah.
used to have DC earlier, but now they've all merged into
Right.
Tata projects. Similarly, I think Shapurji is a good option. You also have, I think there are many others. I don't want to single them out, but there are good private companies which are open, and also a lot of structural consultancy firms. And if you wish to be a structural design engineer, I would strongly recommend that you should become a student member of Indian Association of Structural Engineers. It opens doors for you to meet the owners and the promoters of these companies from time to time in the events. So
Huh.
as a student, then your not only your knowledge level goes up, you're better geared for a technical interview and your career path.
Ma'am, I think you have answered almost all of my questions.
I'd gone through the questions yesterday, and I think my
Yeah.
advice to young people is just to not just get bogged down by how much a computer engineer is earning in the beginning, what kind of salary package is being offered by a bank or Deutsche Bank or something, and stick to their mother engineering discipline. There is a whole lot to be achieved. And India is going through a complete transformation of infrastructure. This will go on for at least next 20, 30, 40 years, 50 years maybe. So there is never going to be a dearth of demand for civil and structural engineers. I don't see that happening. It may not be as lucrative in the beginning as you would want it to be compared to a MBA from IIM or lot of good demand, lot of good companies are doing good work where they can learn and grow.
Okay. So I'd like to start. So let's imagine a student's journey. So when they're entering the college, when they are in the college, and when they are graduating, right? So you mentioned that civil engineering is not a very lucrative field, but it has a lot of demand in the future. So
No, I
your
would
advice.
like to correct you. It may not appear to be as lucrative in the
Huh.
beginning, but within 3 to 5 years, it picks up like anything because the demand is so much for anybody who has a good design experience. So, in the end, even after 5 years, you may find you're earning a really handsome package. If you're working with good companies and you have a good experience means, you have code compliant design experience, for example, for a structural engineer. And supposing you've worked with a good company like SD Engineering Consultants, there will be many takers. People will take you, even in WSP, Atkins, ACOM, and you can move to work with bigger MNCs, which is the dream of every young student who goes into engineering.
Okay, so how much salary can a fresher expect, and how does that package change? Probably they have an experience of 3 to 5 years. How does that package change?
I think it varies from firm to firm and it varies with the kind of work a firm is doing. If you're purely structural design engineers, we are not in a position to pay as much as a PMC company will be paying. You are aware that project management is another good option for
Right.
civil and structural engineers both.
Hmm.
So the pay packet varies from a small boutique company like ours to a big MNC like ACOM or Atkins or whatever. But I think minimum 25 to 30,000 per month is the minimum you can
Hmm.
expect if you've done your M.Tech in structures or M.Tech in any relevant discipline. And within 5 years, it can jump to at least a lakh of rupees. You
Hmm.
know, the
Okay.
movement or
Yeah.
the enhancement is pretty rapid. Experience, you can easily ask for 1 lakh per month, and other perks are,
Hmm.
perks
But
vary.
you mentioned that this is after M.Tech. This is not after B.Tech, is it?
See, I think a structural design engineer must do M.Tech structures if he wants to be good in his work. Because
Okay.
a lot of good understanding comes when you do your M.Tech, especially with respect to the details of design, details of detailing, and steel structures and industrial structures. And a lot of these subjects or topics are not covered at B.Tech level. So I would recommend that anybody who's going to follow a structural design field should
Mm-hmm.
probably think of doing it side by side only. After BTech, just go in for finish it off and then start working. Otherwise,
Hmm.
people like me, I did my MTech much later, and I was working in rights. So that
Okay.
can also be done these days that you start working and you keep studying side by side as a part-time
Hmm.
student. But it's not easy. I mean, it's not
Hmm.
easily done, especially after you get married, you have family responsibilities. Yeah, so it becomes more and more difficult with time.
Hmm. So, how does the syllabus change when you are in civil engineering B.Tech and when you are doing structural engineering M.Tech? What is the difference there?
The additional subjects which are covered are, dynamic designs and pushover analysis. Maybe it is covered in a few premier institutes, and more diverse topics like, maybe airport designs or hangar designs or industrial structures design, a little bit more detail on foundation designs covering,
Hmm.
let's say, piles or pile foundations. These are covered sometimes at BTech level in a more details of analysis and design comes in
Hmm.
when you're studying in MTech. And also you're given a better, more intense lab testing experience. And your
Hmm.
internship also covers structural design and visit to a structural designer's office and maybe a 2 month term or 3 months term working with them. You get a first hand experience as to what actually goes on inside a structural design consultant's office. It gives you a better insight about new technologies of design and construction and equips you better for a professional journey which waits for you.
So, if a student does not want to spend another 2 years in study and they want to work in the industry after their B.Tech in civil, what choices do they have?
Do structural designs. They can also do civil designs, whatever interests them. Supposing
Hmm.
they want to do plumbing and drainage scheme and fire. Fire also
Hmm.
has two components. You must be aware that one is the plumbing part, the other is the fire
Hmm.
prevention part, which is an
Right.
electrical engineer's domain. So that is also an excellent option. Then civil engineers can actually do training in project management or construction supervision. They can be good site engineers. They can be at any project site, which is a very interesting domain to be in. At
Hmm.
once doing a residential project, then you can move on to a commercial building. You can move on to an airport or an industrial project. So civil engineering can also lead you to structural engineering. If you
Mm-hmm.
like doing that, then you can pursue your M.Tech later as a
Yeah.
part-time student, or even take a
Okay.
break for 2 years and do your M.Tech. It all
Hmm.
depends, on personal preferences, personal circumstances.
Right, right. So, what happens in architecture is a general trend that we see these days is a student will go for architecture for 5 years, they will take a break of 1 or 2 years, and then they will go into masters, and then they will come back into the field. But what happens is when you take a gap of 2 years and you change your field. For example, I am an architect and I pursue my landscape. When I come out of landscape architecture, I am treated as a fresher. Does that also, like, does this happen in this field also in engineering?
Well, as an employer, we've never done that, because if an engineer has come to me for an interview and I'm just looking at him to assess his experience and knowledge, whether it was done between B.Tech and M.Tech or it has been done all after M.Tech really doesn't matter to me.
So that's
Ultimately, what matters is how much
matter.
does he know
Okay.
at the time of the interview. It really does matter. Why will I treat him like a fresher?
Okay.
Suppose B.Tech from a
Hmm.
good institute, we do look at the background, which institute does he come from, because I find that the quality of education is slowly deteriorating, especially in private colleges, where
Okay.
it's more like a money churning business, and
Yeah.
students also don't take it very seriously. The atmosphere is more like a party time and not really, not enough serious education is being imparted, or students don't take it very seriously when
Okay.
it comes to the basic learning or the basic engineering being learned. So we do prefer students who are coming from government colleges like NITs or local RECs. Other than that, I think it's the knowledge that he has, his awareness about the codes, and also the skill set that he has in StatPro, SAFE, ETABS, and any
Hmm.
other. Revit and ECLA in India are still not 100% mandatory, but if you try working with any other market like US or UAE or Middle East, then Revit and ECLA are extremely important.
Okay. Okay. All right. So you mentioned Revit, but BIM is quite booming in India also, right? I mean, it's coming slowly.
It's a bit too slow. It definitely has tremendous advantages, but the biggest disadvantage that it is complicated. And if traditionally or typically our Indian environment sees a lot of architectural changes from A
Yeah.
to B, the project undergoes so many revisions
Hmm.
that BIM environment or BIM engineer
Mm-hmm.
invariably ends up entering the changes only after they have been made in the AutoCAD drawings by various discipline stakeholders. He's not the lead, because the architect just happily goes on changing. Be it the
Yeah.
client wanting a change, be it the
Yeah.
interiors
Yeah.
guy wanting a change, or a hotel operator asking for a change, or a fire approver. The changes keep happening. And
Yeah.
in that environment, any software like Revit or BIM takes a backseat, because you want everything tomorrow. You've given
Yeah.
me a drawing today with the revisions and you want everything tomorrow. You don't realize that I have to take those changes, go back to my STAD or ETABS model,
Hmm.
incorporate those changes, check whether my deflections and drift and other limits, mass participation, everything is in order after the changes are carried out, which is a very intense exercise. Only then I can incorporate them in the drawings and give it to you. So, what my complaint to architects is that they do not realize what exactly a structural engineer does. We are not just making drawings, we do a whole lot of work in our back office, which is a very intense involvement. And there are 100 due diligence checks that we are supposed to do before
Of
we can
course.
say, okay, can we remove a particular column? Can we reduce the depth of the beam? And this is the typical demand of an architect, who would like me to make columns disappear, beams
Yeah.
disappear. But the work is really very intense and very
Yeah.
complex.
I understand. But ma'am, having practiced for so many years, do you have a solution to this problem? Because this is a problem everyone in this field faces a lot.
The
How can we
problem,
streamline?
I would just like to share that interestingly, I was asked by one of my architect friends who was heading SPA at that time to come and teach structures to architecture students and
Okay.
teach them what is not being regularly taught. He
Okay.
said, whatever you feel is missing in our curriculum, you should teach them that. So I was very enthusiastic. I prepared a lot of good PPTs and started running them for them, and I found that they had no interest. None of the architectural students, I mean, they obviously praised a lot, they liked me a lot, and they were very appreciative of the work that I had done to teach them about code compliance, the correct planning techniques. The planning comes from architects, but sadly, none of the architects is aware that there is a regular chapter in IS 1893 telling you how to plan your building in all the seismic zones 3, 4, and 5, which is
Hmm.
covering 60% of India. But none of the architects wants to know that. He doesn't want to learn. He says structural engineering आपका domain है आप करिए अब मुझे क्यों इसमें फंसा दें. And none of the students showed any interest in learning. I tried teaching them about the code compliance issues that we face regularly, the reflection problem, the drift problem, the big cantilevers, the floating columns, and all the problems that we encounter, which are not regulated by the codes, these elements in our structure, which come because your architect wants you to do this. And there is a basic system we have to follow, which is mandated by the code. And if we are not following that, we are compromising on safety and we're not doing the necessary due diligence, which is not good. I mean, I wouldn't want to do that. Is only to probably make our architects aware of these issues, and I think Council of Architects should ideally initiate that. As association, will be happy to come and hold a few webinars or lectures or demonstrations, but it's upon architects to learn. If not, when are we going to learn? If a Turkey-like earthquake happens near somewhere close to Panipat, where we do have a lot of fault lines, then we are going to see some very, very major disasters.
So we do understand that not all the buildings in India are actually designed by architects. It's only a handful buildings, right? So I'm talking about not the major infrastructure projects only here, but even the private smaller buildings also that come up every now and then, right? So a person goes to a contractor and he says that भैया मेरा तो ये वाला छोटा सा 100 गज का घर है आप ये बना दीजिए, right? So how do we deal with that problem? What about the other 80% or 90% buildings that are coming up without any rules or regulations in India? How do
See,
we solve that?
I would categorize the buildings into engineered and non-engineered buildings. Let's not
Okay.
get into the architect versus engineer role here because that is a very touchy topic, and maybe what I say may not be the correct thing, on a platform like this. Because you know that structural engineers invariably end up working under architects even for
Hmm.
smaller building projects like 200 square yards, 2000 square yards and above, architects
Hmm.
are usually engaged. Let's not
Hmm.
talk about 100 square yards and below. That
Hmm.
may be a subject which is a big concern to everybody because the buildings are totally non-engineered and left to
Hmm.
the contractors or masons'
Yeah.
imagination. So those are clearly unsafe. We see a lot of buildings which have sprung up even on a half brick wall They are holding
Hmm.
up 4 or 5 stories which are going to fall. They that is a big scare. And they keep falling. ऐसा नहीं है कि गिरती नहीं है. वो करेंगे तो buildings गिर रही हैं. All across India है. But
Right.
unfortunately, we don't have an engineering council like Council of Architects, and we don't hold our engineers accountable. We don't give our engineers a license to practice, so they are not
Hmm.
scared of losing that license if a building falls. I think that is something which is a big reason for such things happening. आप अगर
Hmm.
मैंडेट कर दें कि आप कॉलेज से निकले आपको इंजीनियरिंग काउंसिल में एग्जाम देना है और आपको
हाँ.
अपना पी लाइसेंस लेना है, ये तभी हो सकता है when our parliament enacts an engineer's bill, like it
Hmm.
enacted
Architects.
a
Yes.
architect's bill or a CA's bill or a doctor's bill or a lawyer's bill. Then only people will take it seriously. You know,
Hmm.
practicing consultants, practicing contractors, practicing architects. They will
Hmm.
hire engineers with PE license only. They will not be allowed to hire a engineer who's a fly-by-night operator, probably working in a public sector company and doing some freelancing or part-time work. However, I feel number one, accountability should be there, which is lacking in our profession. नंबर टू,
Hmm.
आई थिंक हमारा जो सिस्टम है उसमें आर्किटेक्ट्स के थ्रू पेमेंट आता है तो स्ट्रक्चरल इंजीनियर्स को पैसे मिलते ही नहीं है, तो बेचारे जो स्ट्रक्चरल इंजीनियर्स काम कर रहे होते हैं ना उनको they don't have enough time or money to
Yeah.
actually do the full due diligence. Supposing I'm doing a 200 square yard house designed for you, and you've
Hmm.
given me, let's say, measly fee of 20,000 or 30,000. So I cannot do a 3D ETABS modeling. I
I
cannot do
understand.
a safe modeling for raft. I cannot do all the checks and balances for
Hmm.
ensuring that the building stays safe in earthquakes. So, those people who accept such a low fee and those people who are actually paying such a low fee, they are all
Hmm.
part of a very vicious cycle, and this cycle
Right.
must be broken. So, my advice to structural engineers or students is to look for niche fields and to enhance their skills and be so capable and competent that you should ask for higher fees, and you
Hmm.
should ask for a fee which justifies your work, and your work should justify your fee, both ways. ऐसा नहीं
Yeah.
होना चाहिए कि आपने कम पैसे एग्री कर लिए और आप काम की क्वालिटी डाइल्यूट कर दें। काम करते हैं अपनी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में, जितना आपका इनपुट लगता है किसी पर्टिकुलर प्रोजेक्ट में, उसके हिसाब से आप चार्ज कीजिए। आप नॉट नेसेसरी दैट यू चार्ज 2 रुपीज स्क्वायर फुट और 3 रुपीज स्क्वायर फुट और वट एवर द client is offering. You should refuse the work if the pay is
Yeah.
not good, the money is not justified, just leave the project. It is better to not get into a project where you will ultimately be under a lot of pressure to lower the quality of your design. I've
Yeah.
seen clients coming to me telling me to do, building in, let's say, 4 kilo per square feet or 4.2 kilo per square feet, a G plus 15 building for a public
Hmm.
sector undertaking. These days this EPC mode is taking a toll. Look at the number of buildings, bridges which have fallen, and airport collapses which are happening. It
Right.
has its own advantages, but the biggest disadvantage I see is that in EPC mode, your design is not being checked. It's probably being done by a cheapest structural
Huh.
engineer, and it's
Huh.
being, vetted by some institution, and the quality ultimately that you're getting is not
Hmm.
up to the mark.
Right. Right. Okay. So EPC mode, you are how the tender floats and how the contractor is selected, right?
No, EPC mode means that you no longer have, the client does not hire an architect, he does not
Acha.
hire a structural engineer, he simply hires a contractor who then hires an architect, and then that architect hires a structural engineer and an electrical and
Oh.
plumbing and mechanical team and a fire
Hmm.
consultant. So we are not answerable to the client per se. We are
Huh.
answerable only to the EPC contractor. उसका पहला मैंडेट क्या होता है कि आपको मैं
Hmm.
एक पर्टिकुलर प्रोजेक्ट देना चाहता हूँ, पर मैं आपको ये तभी दूंगा जब आप मुझे ये बताएं कि टेंडर्ड क्वांटिटीज के ऊपर आप मुझे कितनी सेविंग दे सकते हैं.
Now I get
That
it.
is the
Okay.
basic premise of hiring you. I'm telling you
Huh.
the inside story. I mean, I have dealt with a few in the recent past, and this is how
Acha.
they hire their structural engineers. Obviously, the mode is still the lowest bidder, so they have
Hmm.
quoted a certain fee and they have quoted certain quantities, based on
Hmm.
which that amount was derived. So he shares those quantities with you and he tells you कि इतना concrete, इतना स्टील, इतना शटरिंग, इतना ये सब मैंने कैलकुलेट किया था. अब वो
Hmm.
इनिशियल जो उसका बिड जब बना, उस
Hmm.
समय किसने डिज़ाइन किया था? कोई डिज़ाइन भी हुआ था या नहीं हुआ था? हो सकता है कि उसने थंब रूल पे वो फिगर्स ले ली हों. हाउ
हाँ.
कैन आई assure him and how
Hmm.
can I tell him for sure that yes, I'll give you a 10% saving on this? Not be possible because he may not have actually done a correct design, code compliant design and calculated quantities. इतना टाइम तो रहता नहीं है जब आप बिड
Right.
करते हैं प्रोजेक्ट के लिए. You're not given a 3 month period or 2 months. So we've
Right.
ended up losing a lot of money in some projects where our design was compared with a thumb rule design carried out by an EPC contractors team initially.
Hmm.
So this is a huge drawback, and our government is not realizing
Yeah.
that this failure of bridges or the collapses that have happened is only the tip of an iceberg. It'll lead to
Really?
more and more problems. Yes, because आप खुद सोचो ना कि आपने एक बड़े कॉन्ट्रैक्टर कंपनी के साथ आप एसोसिएट हुए हैं who has won a project and you feel so enthusiastic, you want to work with him for a large station redevelopment or an airport redevelopment or whatever. These are
Hmm.
public projects where lakhs of people may be actually using it and you putting them to their safety to in
So.
danger. Yeah.
Hmm.
By telling simply that you have to lower the steel quantity, you have to lower the concrete quantity. और एक पर्टिकुलर इंस्टेंस में डिज़ाइन आईआईटी दिल्ली से वेटेड था और वो
अच्छा.
कॉन्ट्रैक्टर को लगा कि हमने कंजर्वेटिव डिज़ाइन दिया है और आर्ट स्टेशन का हमारी ड्राइंग से एग्जीक्यूट हो रहा था एंड ही वाज
हाँ.
क्लियरली अनहैप्पी and he took the other part drawings and design from us and gave it to another IIT for vetting. Hired a local contractor रुड़की का कोई बंदा और उसने IIT रुड़की से उसको वेट करा लिया with a much
Hmm.
lower thickness. My part of the station has been designed with a raft of 1100 mm thickness. His
Hmm.
part of the station has now only 650 mm thick raft. और सॉइल है,
Hmm.
हाई वाटर टेबल है और पाइल्स नहीं दिए, हमने राफ्ट ही दिया है. अगर सॉइल
हाँ.
आप इतनी खराब सॉइल में, इतनी पुअर सॉइल बेयरिंग कैपेसिटी में आप फाउंडेशन में आपने इतना मेजर goof up कर लिया और वो
हाँ.
these guys go scot free.
Hmm. Exactly. So you said na accountability and liability.
है ही नहीं वेज के ऊपर या पीएमसी
Hmm.
कंपनी के ऊपर या कंसल्टेंट्स के ऊपर. ईपीसी
Hmm.
he will always have a scapegoat ready, na plan B ready.
Yeah.
So EPC cannot be a solution to a magic solution. It has to
Hmm.
be given some time. The structural design engineer needs some time, basic minimum time to do his design well. Similarly, an architect or a coordinator or a PMC consultant needs a
Hmm.
basic minimum time, beyond which it's not possible to compress it. So
Hmm.
if
Right.
clients are in such a big hurry and they see EPC mode as a magic solution to all wonder, I don't think that is true. Somebody has to, we have to take a pause, review our
Right.
stand, our strategy, and maybe pre-select contractors we want to invite for POC mode based on their past experience, their track record of failures, or their team, how many experienced engineers do they have on board.
Right.
There should be no political interference in selection of contractors and consultants.
Yeah, yeah. So, what is your take on multidisciplinary firms? Do you think that it will be a better approach regarding all the problems that we have discussed?
No. I think the difference between the earlier firms and now is that we used to take pride in being structural engineers. We used to love our
Mm-hmm.
work and we were very passionate about our work. The great projects that have come up in India by people like Mahendra Raj and Tandon Sahab, they have always been involved 100% in their work, and they did not look at it only like a business, purely as a business entrepreneurship. And that kind of feeling or that kind of attachment with their work, even amongst architects, I've seen most younger architects, sorry, don't feel offended, have become
No.
more, they are so they are so enamored, or they're so taken up with the Revit or 360-degree modeling and walk-ins, walkthroughs, and all that, that the client gets impressed. The glamour of the industry has taken over the essence of the industry, the soul of industry, I would say. So client is interested in looking at beautiful, glamorous buildings, and he's not concerned whether your pantry is actually big enough to cater to his requirement at the end, or the kitchen is big enough to cater to his personal requirements, or living room is big enough, or drawing room come living room, the how does it functionally correlate. Similarly, in hospitals and projects where coordination or architectural perspective or detailing matters so much, those things are not missing. Why? Because धीरे धीरे हमारी जो younger generation है, they are becoming more of computer operators, be it in architecture or be it in structural engineering or electrical engineering. I think softwares like Revit and BIM are definitely going to be helpful. But as I said earlier, we have to be willing to stop. For a project to be successful, I think it can be successful only the way the developed world does it. That you do your architecture, close the dabba, give it to engineers, they do their engineering, close the box, you coordinate and see if everything fits, and just close it. There should be no room for any more changes. And then it should be seen by the municipality, checked by them thoroughly, all the
Yeah.
architecture, all the engineering. And then only
Right.
you should be allowed to put your contractor at site. And once the contractor is at site, you're not allowed to make any changes. That is how they do it in US, UAE, or wherever you work. Your engineering is also checked 100%. ETABS models, your SAFE models, your StatPro models, everything they go through. And they go through all your GFC drawings and they tally it, whether it's matching with the architecture or not. And municipalities themselves may not have so many engineers to cater to the growing need of a particular city, but they empanel, shortlisted consultants and let them do the proof checking. So that
So,
is the way forward.
right, right. So, what are the top three challenges you would say that engineers are facing today?
I think recognition, respect, and money, all three, are a little in the days when my maternal uncle used to study in Delhi College of Engineering, uh, 50s or 60s, I would say, the engineers were respected a lot. They were considered an integral nation builder. That sort of image is now no longer there, thanks to our Bollywood, where a civil engineer is always shown as the guy who steals cement and steals loha. And typically our image has really gone down the drain. And then thanks to architect friends or clients who hire only an architect and then give him the engineering designs also. So the money has also become a trickle. It is not, uh, if you are charging 2%, I should be charging 2% on the structural cost. But that is not happening. You charge 2% and you give 2 rupees square foot or 3 rupees square foot to an engineer, which is just peanuts. Thing is recognition, I think, or respect. Respect comes from recognition. There is no awareness. Very, very few people in India would be able to tell me correctly what a structural engineer or a mechanical engineer actually does.
Yeah.
So maybe that needs to be improved. As
Actually, people are not aware of each other's roles.
हाँ मतलब हमारा अब जो हीरो एड्यूलेशन है वो इट इज टुवर्ड्स क्रिकेटर्स और बॉलीवुड स्टार्स और आई वुडंट कॉल बॉलीवुड heroes because they are just Bollywood stars.
Yeah.
But I feel that enough has not been written about the true heroes in our country who have actually built the nation one by one, bit by bit. True,
Right.
not enough has been covered in the media. Unfortunately, they are so busy in covering politics that these topics of development or new technologies or, you know, social development or sustainable development initiatives being taken by some people, exceptional innovations are not being talked about. We are so obsessed with politics. We are so obsessed with a certain
Right.
community versus the other certain community. I think enough is being already discussed on those lines. I don't want to talk about that. But I think we should be more aware about builders. Not only the engineers, but architects, the contractors, and good people, good work they are doing should be brought to notice of people. Maybe short films can be created which can be shown before a movie is being shown, or they can be, documentaries on OTT platforms and all, where people get to see nice bridges in India. Our engineers have come up
At
with some.
least, at least with these engineering marvels coming up in Dubai, at least people now know what civil engineering is. So we have to at least give that up.
दुबई की बात ऐसी है कि लोग आजकल क्लाइंट्स क्या करते हैं दुबई से यूरोप से कुछ इमेजेस लेके और आर्किटेक्ट्स को दे देते हैं कि हमें ऐसी बिल्डिंग चाहिए बट दुबई डज नॉट हैव earthquake. And similarly, most of Europe, is blessed. They don't have a history of earthquakes, except
Right.
Turkey. It's not really part of Europe. But I think most of US is free of earthquakes. So there is a certain type of planning which is mandatory. Regular geometries are mandatory in seismic zones. And that has to be done carefully. Otherwise, I've been to Dubai many times in the recent past. Their buildings are beautiful, very, very awe-inspiring, and they are in all shapes and sizes. And definitely, it's something worth a visit.
Hmm.
I think our
Okay.
awareness should improve about civil engineering and engineering in general.
Yeah.
But I see myself as a happy person at the end of my 42 years of work. Thank God. I'm blessed with whatever a young person would dream of, a good home, good cars. I've been able to educate my children abroad and give them good careers. And I do travel for pleasure or work frequently. to other countries, and at my wish, I can travel. So
Hmm.
I think God has been great, kind enough, and my parents worked very hard to give us the education that. And I see myself as a happy person. I think as an engineer, you do well if you stick to your basics and you do good engineering and build up a credit so that people know you
Yeah.
as a good engineer. You may say that Sangeeta is a bit conservative. She's on the whole a good engineer. तो वो रेपुटेशन एक बार आपकी बन जाती है तो अच्छा लगता है. Money is not everything. Once you're 50 plus, you do
Yeah.
realize that the number of zeros in your bank account really doesn't matter so much.
But the younger generation does not understand that. I mean, their aspirations are very different from the aspiration for even what we had when we were graduating. And
No,
yours
no.
is all 4 decades before.
You see, it's natural. I think these are natural desires for anybody. And then every week or every fortnight, at least they can go and party. Uh, every youngster wants to do that. I don't blame them for doing that. All I'm trying to say is that after putting in a few good years in your profession, you will be able to do that. As an
Hmm.
engineer, you do earn a decent amount of money. It's not that you're bankrupt or hand to mouth existence. And touch wood, by God's grace, I'm in a position where a BMW or a Tesla or doesn't appear to be inaccessible. So I
Right.
don't. Luxury is affordable once you're in a good profession with a good salary.
Right. So we have talked about how civil engineers can make their career in jobs, be it private, be it public. We have not talked about if they want to start their own practice. How does
And
the journey looks like there?
no, I think I did cover my journey in a little bit. I
Hmm.
did cover, to some extent. And I think it's been very rewarding being a consultant. I've been able to handle a very wide variety of projects. And I worked with clients, almost all the known names, and be it food and pharma plants, be it power transformer plant, or rail coach
Hmm.
factory, or cement plant, or residential tall buildings, commercial tall buildings, airport structures, or pharmaceutical or food or chemical plants. We've done it all, and it gives me a lot of professional satisfaction that I've been able
Hmm.
to achieve something so incredible. I don't think being in a job in rights would have offered me that kind of
But
satisfaction.
how does a fresher go about doing this? How do they get projects? How do they establish the business?
To learn the design
Hmm.
basics. Engineering prepares you for your journey to start, but
Hmm.
working with a good consultant for at least 5 to 10 years gives you a good foundation to start your own practice. And I would recommend that people do that after they feel they are confident of doing independent work, because when you start a new company, you should create a business plan first. Have a
Hmm.
business mindset, look at a couple of years down the
Hmm.
line, how much are you likely to earn and how much are you likely to spend. So keep that investment ready. If you
Hmm.
hire 3 engineers, 3 draftsmen to start with, for at least 2 years, you should be able to pay their salaries even if you're not able to earn anything out of that. So it's like any other business. You have to do your homework, you have to be ready with the laws of the land, what kind of taxation is happening, when are you supposed to file those GST returns, and how does
Hmm.
the tax return look like, and how
Yeah.
much you pay a chartered accountant for that. So your business plan should incorporate all the likely expenses in the next couple of years. And what are your computer software is going to be costing you? How much are your desktops or laptops going to cost you? And what is the annual maintenance charge of a Stat Pro or any tabs or a safe? How much are you supposed to pay them every year? We have to pay them for maintaining a license which we bought by paying a hefty amount of money. So software providers are also now huge sharks, for us. We have to account for them and we have to live with them. So basically, I see an entrepreneur in a structural consultant. And to be successful as a structural consultant, he has to be a decently good entrepreneur as well. आज के time में वो मैनेज नहीं कर पाएगा क्योंकि आपने अगर 2 महीना भी स्टाफ सैलरीज लेट कर दी या आपने
हाँ,
सॉफ्टवेयर या आपने पेमेंट नहीं किया तो you will not be able to survive. I've
the
seen lots of
yeah.
freelancers, consultants
हाँ.
shut shop because they couldn't manage overheads. And how much is going to be your electricity bill once you install the ACs and you have all the lights and everything according to a decent office requirement? How much is going to be your electricity bill per month? How much are you going to pay as rent for your office? So वो सब को business plan में incorporate करके चलना पड़ेगा. Then you can make a list of all the likely clients you can work with. What kind of projects are you geared to design? How much are you capable of actually delivering? Good, solid experience, design experience. You can start your own company.
The journey looks very similar to what an architect's journey would be because I am familiar with that more. So I could really see a structural engineer doing a similar thing what an architect would do in establishing their practice.
Yeah, only our softwares are more expensive and our desktops are more expensive.
You need a lot more software than an architecture office would need. So we have talked about the government jobs and their private counterparts.
L&T
Yeah,
has design
ele-
wing. Even Shobha developers, Shobha
huh,
developers, they have a huge design
right,
department.
huh,
Carry out all the designing in-house.
right. So could you give an idea would the path to be first when any structural engineer or a civil engineer they want to get into a private job and what the path would be when they want to get into a government.
I would say the path is really similar. I mean, I would say just stick to your basics. Don't, while away your time at college. Learn your basics well so that at
Okay.
the time of the interview, you give out a good impression. And these days, I think our children are much better presenters. They are much better skilled in communication. They are well versed in English and Hindi, and they can
Hmm.
manage to convey their thoughts very clearly. But the basics in engineering is what anybody looks at before hiring an engineer. Of course, for public sector, sometimes they have their own examination systems, so they have to undergo an exam.
Yeah. So the candidates have to look out when the jobs are out, right? It's not like private sector where they can apply any time. It's not
Yes,
like that.
colleges have a lot of companies coming into their campus for interviews, and there is Indian Engineering Services (IES), where
Yes, yes.
it's a highly competitive exam, which leads you to positions in railways and CPWDs and places like Department of Telecom and all that. So these are government jobs where you are hired as an assistant executive engineer, which is a decently respectable position. And the opportunities are tremendous. The kind of projects they are handling are also much larger than a private consultancy firm maybe handling. So that's a different set of opportunities, but essentially the requirement is same. To be geared. You go for an interview, dress up accordingly, wear smart clothes, and you should be able to talk nicely. You should be able to present your thoughts with clarity. Listen to the interviewer, what is he asking, and then give your answer. Don't be hesitant or don't be scared. Ultimately, nobody expects you to answer all the questions, and you can always acknowledge and admit that, okay, sorry, I'm not aware of this. Or maybe this is there in a particular code number so and so, but I'm not familiar with the clause as of now. I don't remember the clause now. And it's okay. I mean, if we are talking about slab design for continuous slabs, there is some provision in IS 456. So if the candidate is not able to tell me exactly the coefficients to be used, he should at least be able to tell me, yes, there is a clause in 456 which we can use to do this.
Uh,
Is to stick to your engineering and stick to the basics. Knowledge is very important. In our field,
yeah.
serious profession, and you should be willing to learn continuously. Knowledge gaining is a continuous process. So you have to keep reading in media, in your journals, attend conferences, workshops. That willingness should come across in your interview or come through in your interview.
Right. Is
That's
there like do colleges all help students getting internships also in civil and structural engineering?
yes, some colleges do. They send out letters to companies, but I'm not exactly familiar with what is happening nowadays.
Yeah. Okay.
Time, of course, companies came and we were helped. I mean, we did get help in our internship. See, our engineering was 5 years at that time, and the second semester was in full internship. So I
Right.
remember I had been recommended for EIL in Tarapur. So Tarapur was constructing the EIL building here in Bikaji. Also, in between, we had a 1 month or 2 months internship. That some embassy which was under construction in Chanakyapuri. So I think our college placement department was helping our students. I think something our students are very good at these days.
I know some of the like at least software departments in some colleges they help students getting internships. So they have tie-ups with a handful of companies, and the students literally just have to fill a form. So they just have to click on a link, and their internship is set. So I was asking if anything happens like that in civil, because architects are deprived of jobs a lot, so they have to go out and hunt jobs on their own. There is no such thing as college placements in most of the colleges.
Most of the institutes that I've come across been associated with MET Noida and MET Manesar, and of course I keep going to DTU, and I find that there are placement divisions which are very active. But still, they may not be able to, they may or may not be able to cover 100% students in that batch, or offer them what the student really wanted. Times you're offered something which you didn't want. Students also
Right.
have to make some effort, look for something, maybe their parents are in touch with some architects or engineers or consultants. ढूंढ लेते हैं बच्चे आजकल मैंने देखा स्मार्ट हैं हमारे पास
हाँ.
इंटर्न्स हैं डीटीयू का एक है और there was a civil engineer student who wanted to do internship in bridges. So he
अच्छा.
He approached me and I helped him in connecting with a good bridge consultant. I think it's important that you start this activity well in time. If your campus placement or your placement department is not likely to be helpful or not very active, you should, as a student, start this activity well in time, approach the organizations that you wish to work with, give them some advance notice, and then your chances of getting it are better. If you go last moment, then people may not be able to accommodate.
What do you think would be the next big boom for civil engineers or structural engineers?
Ah, civil engineering started when there was no other engineering, it's the mother of engineering. But it has been a steady one, and it's seen a boom when a lot of metro construction started happening, and it's when a lot of airport modernizations or new airports started happening. So, there is probably an increase in demand. So, something or another will keep happening, and I think our buildings will grow taller. So, there will be need for civil and structural engineers in almost all the metro cities or even tier two cities. I don't see the demand going down. It may fluctuate a little bit, it may go up and come down a little bit, but it will never become zero or, come down to a very,
I
because
think
buildings
I
are
think
being
with
required.
I think with the boom in construction industry, the demand is ever growing. I don't think it is becoming stagnant also.
I think the demand is far outgrown the supply, and only problem that we are facing is the supply is not of good quality engineers. When we
Huh.
interview fresh engineers or even the experienced ones, we come across people who have never actually delved deeper. If
Hmm.
you're working more like a computer operator, then you're not a structural engineer. You're behaving more
Hmm.
like a computer operator. If I ask
Right.
about deflection, or if I find that your designs are only what the software has produced and it lacks the touch of a structural engineer, or the due diligence has not been done as per the
Hmm.
code provisions, then I don't consider you acceptable to work in my company.
Um, this is a very interesting point. Do you think that AI can help structure engineers, or how can structure engineers embrace AI? Because there is a lot of boom, and architects, even architects, are also embracing AI these days. So they give a prompt and a beautiful rendering, at least they can have help from AI.
Well, I would like to wait for some time before commenting upon it. I mean, AI sounds pretty exciting. I've used it in improving the content writing that sometimes I end up doing a lot of posting a lot of content on LinkedIn or something, or while writing papers or writing articles. But
Mm-hmm.
structural engineering, whether or not we should talk about AI at this stage remains to be seen. I think it may transform our construction industry more than the design industry. Uh, I wouldn't want to comment on it because, as it is, I'm disappointed that our
Mm-hmm.
students are becoming just computer operators, CAD operators, are lacking the touch and feel of a structural engineer. They are lacking in the in depth knowledge. So, if
Right.
AI takes over structural engineering, it
Hmm.
remains to be seen what the end product comes out to be. Acceptable? Is it something that you would want to? It can actually, it can work wonders. It can completely eliminate the need of a structural engineer if AI takes over and AI incorporates maybe
Right.
20, 30 years down the line, it may happen.
Hmm.
पर वो इंजीनियरिंग कॉमन सेंस जो है वो इंकॉर्पोरेट हो पाएगी उसमें या नहीं.
I
और
think all the laborious and the tedious work of drawings that we have to do, that is something that we can offload to AI. But the human touch that you
बहुत
said.
प्रॉब्लम होती है. अभी भी there are softwares which claim that your ETABS can be directly exported into the drawing software and it creates
Mm-hmm.
drawings for you. But there are practical issues with those softwares and those drawings which come out of auto-generated drawings, which are coming out of softwares. So I
Hmm.
think there are a lot of points, touch points where an engineer needs to touch the project to make it functional or to make it safe or to make it
Right.
optimal, you know.
Hmm.
If you need a 400 beam and you provide a 600 deep beam, in any case, it is going to be safe. But can you optimize it to 400? Or if the client is telling you to do a 300 deep beam, is it safe enough or not? Only a structural engineer can design and check and decide whether AI will go to that length and do
Right.
it. Only time will tell. So it is
Yes.
a theme. I see a lot of potential in AI, no doubt. How much of it can be incorporated into structural engineering designs or construction or project management? I think project management can be completely taken over by AI. It can actually eliminate the role of a project manager theoretically. But practically वो जो experience होता है project manager का या project management team का, उसको completely आप eliminate. And I think
Right.
the objective of AI is not to eliminate the professional inputs, it's only to help you
Help
get
to
better output. Yeah.
yes.
I see a lot of scope.
Yeah. It has been a really, really interesting, wonderful session. Thank you for joining us, ma'am.
Yeah, I enjoyed it completely, and thank you very much for doing this. And I thank Inside and wish you all the best for all your future endeavors.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you found Converse valuable, you can subscribe to the podcast on YouTube and Spotify. Also, please share your reviews on the show and the topics of discussions through comments. Let us know if you found anything interesting in particular. You can find all past episodes and know more about us on insight.ai. See you in the next episode.